Welcome to New Connection, where you can tune in and grow. I'm your host, Vicki Thompson. You may be familiar with New Connection magazine for conscious living, which has been enjoyed by readers in the Pacific Northwest for more than 20 years. Now we're excited to bring New Connection to life in your home. On New Connection, we welcome authors, practitioners, and visionaries to share new ideas for alternative health, spirituality, and personal growth. Today, I'd like to welcome to New Connection Dr. James Beckerman, a cardiologist at Providence Heart and Vascular Institute in Portland, and the author of The Flex Diet, which shows you 200 ways to lose 1 pound. Dr. Beckerman, welcome to New Connection.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, 200 ways to lose 1 pound. Can you show me one way to lose 200 pounds?
What's funny, in thinking about this idea and trying best to communicate how to help people make healthier choices in their lives, I was talking with my wife one night, and I said to her, how do you look somebody in the eye and tell them how to lose 10 pounds, 20 pounds, or even 100 pounds? And without skipping a beat, she looked at me and said, well, why not just tell them how to lose 1 pound in 100 different ways? And so that was the nidus for how this kind of approach to the book came about.
Well, that sounds like a very practical way to do it. Because looking at losing 50 pounds or 20 pounds or even 10 pounds can be like, how can I do this? But if I can lose 1 pound, then you can be creative and have fun.
That's right. And we understand that it's much easier for people to think about making smaller changes in their lives rather than these huge paradigm shifts or extremely lopsided approaches to nutrition or exercise. And so if you can help people focus on the little things, they actually do add up. So I think it's working out for people.
So you are a heart doctor, a cardiologist. How did a heart doctor get into the weight loss business?
Well, it always comes back to the patients. And there was a particular patient who really inspired this whole experience for me. He was a gentleman a few years older than me who one day was trying to exercise at home. He was getting onto his elliptical machine in his basement. And before he could even press the start button, he had a cardiac arrest. And so he was brought to our hospital where we found that he was having a heart attack, and we were able to open up the little artery that was supplying the heart muscle that was closed in this heart attack. And over the subsequent weeks, he slowly got better and eventually was able to be sent home. And the thing that really struck me was when I saw him a few weeks later in the clinic. We talked about his medications, we talked about the plan for the future, and on his way out, he sort of looked at me and said, well, what are we going to do about this? And it really struck me. You know, when you look in the mirror, you don't think about your blood pressure. You don't think about your cholesterol, your blood sugar. You think of how you look in the mirror. And it turns out that your weight is the barometer for the rest of your health. And we know so well now that if we target people's weight, if we can help the society at large lose 10 pounds, we'll reduce the risk of heart disease by on the order of 50% because it will impact their blood pressure, their cholesterol, their blood sugar, and all these risk factors for heart disease. So that's how the book was born. This patient, this experience, and a very helpful conversation with my wife on how to go about it.
So you talk about that weight loss starts with just a single pound.
That's right.
So how does that philosophy work?
Well, for me, we have so much data about what works, but I feel like one of the challenges has been our message. You know, when you tell people that they have to fit their lives into your message, inevitably, people feel as though they're set up to fail. You go see your doctor, and it's as if you're given a laminated card of advice. You know, do this. And it doesn't matter if you're a 75-year-old recovering from a heart attack, or a 45-year-old, or a 25-year-old. You sort of get the same information. And we all have different challenges, we have different lifestyles, we have different limitations. And I think it's hard to try to get people to all fit that same laminated message. And so what I tried to do by thinking about this more in terms of small changes that are flexible, that's where the title comes from, my hope is that we can actually modify our message in how it's applied to fit people's lifestyles rather than forcing their lifestyles to fit a more rigid message.
So, as a doctor, you're obviously seeing people who might be in crisis, who might be there because they need a
Yeah.
change in their life. How have you found this plan to work among your patients?
It's been very exciting because one of the joys of my job is that I get to spend time with the 25-year-old, the 50-year-old, the 75-year-old, and beyond. And as I was writing the book, I really found myself almost testing the ideas with people and saying to them, what works for you? How can you walk for 10 minutes more every day? Or what's one thing that you could change about your diet right now that wouldn't be that big of a deal? And so taking all those ideas, bringing them together, and then supporting it with research was a big part of putting the book together. And there's been a really nice response. One of the things we've done at my medical center at Providence, we have something called the Providence Health Adventure, in which we try to motivate our employees to exercise more and eat better. And we were able to provide over 3,500 people with copies of the Flex Diet.
Nice.
To get them involved in the process. And people are posting their experiences online, their weight loss, the number of steps they're taking, the hours of exercise, and we're literally into the millions of steps and thousands of hours and pounds lost. And that's only over the past 6 weeks.
Wow.
So the book's only been out for 2 months now, so I feel like we're just getting started, but I'm really excited about the response.
Well, why don't you tell us a bit about the Flex Diet and how it's work and how it works and how it's set up?
Sure. Well, there's 200 solutions, as I call them. But when you're trying to present things in a book form, it's helpful to organize it into a program. Because I think it's useful for people to think about things in terms of time frame, and so that they're not overwhelmed by all these things that I need to do. So what I did is I separated the book into 3 different parts. The first part I call Today, the second part I call Every Day, and the third part is Your Way. And so the idea, during the first 2 weeks, which I call Today, there are some solutions there that I think that most people should be able to adopt right as they're reading them. Really easy things that don't require much planning. You don't really have to go to the grocery store and buy anything fancy. It's just a question of doing some things that are going to keep you more mindful. And then in the next section, which is the 3-week period called Every Day, I start presenting a lot of nutritional ideas, some recipes, some great strategies for making your breakfast, lunch, and dinner healthier, and adding in a lot of exercise and activity tips. And then in the Your Way selection, which is about 100 of the solutions, that's another 3-week period, but it really extends beyond that. And the idea here is to do things that are a little bit outside of the box, to choose things that you might not have heard about before or thought about before, and be flexible, because the solutions that might work for you won't work for me, and vice versa. And I think that instead of thinking of that as a limitation, it's time to actually celebrate the fact that we're individuals, and it's okay that we're going to do things a little bit differently, but we're going to get to ultimately a similar place.
Well, it sounds like a very creative book, but it also sounds just very practical. Rather than, only eat this protein
Right.
with this other, mineral, that you will achieve this. It just sounds like someone could pick it up. And if they were also, dealing with high blood pressure, they could pick it up and just find simple ways
Yes.
to change that.
That's the goal. There are a lot of interesting ideas out there with respect to focusing on a certain superfood, as it's called, or doing exercise in a particular way, or staggering your meals in a particular fashion. And I find that those ideas are interesting, but hard to stick with in the longer term. And it's exciting, you're reading your book and you're involved in this program, but then you go to a wedding, or you want to go out to dinner on Saturday night, or you want to do something special with your family, and you realize that that doesn't fit into the diet program that you're on. And it's very confusing. You don't know how to deal with that situation, and ultimately you start to stray from this program. And for a lot of us, once you've strayed from the program, all of a sudden you've failed. And that, I think, ends up that yo-yo experience that a lot of people have, where they feel that they somehow have failed at this program, and then they're stuck at square one.
Mm-hmm.
But the goal of the Flex Diet, and I think other similar type approaches just to mindfulness and rational thinking, is basically you never fail. You just keep learning. And so when this solution doesn't work out for you, that's okay. Just choose something else that does.
Because there's 199 more
Exactly.
in the book that you can choose from.
Exactly.
So you have over 200 different weight loss ideas
Yeah.
that people can try. Let's go through a couple that people
Sure.
could try today. One, Flex Solution number 67, is that you could substitute quinoa for white rice.
Yeah. You know, a lot of us use rice or pasta as kind of that starch content of the meal. And while the low carb approach might just say, get rid of it entirely, you can't have it. And you can't have a bun on your burger or a tortilla with your burrito or whatever it might be. I'm trying to think about different substitutions that might work. And it turns out that quinoa is something that people don't know a lot about. It's actually more a vegetable in the category like beets or chard. And when you cook it up, it has a fairly similar consistency to rice in that it kind of soaks up the flavors of other things that it's served with. And it has fewer calories and more fiber. There's about 40 fewer calories in a serving of quinoa compared to white rice. And it doesn't sound like a huge change, but that's exactly the point. It's not going to be a big deal when you're sitting there at dinner having this. You're not going to be losing and melting pounds away as you enjoy your meal. But if you do that over a period of weeks or months, 40 calories adds up. And I think all the ideas are all about that. Finding the little things. They're not that stressful. You're not going to freak out. You know, I can't have my whatever that I enjoy so much. It's just thinking about it a little bit more flexibly, creatively, and using the evidence and the nutritional information to back it up.
Well, it also sounds like it goes into your lifestyle, that you can make these simple lifestyle changes that make a big difference. And it's sometimes we change our life one step at a time, so it's nice.
Yeah, I think we should. I think that when people decide to make drastic changes, they're easy to get your mind around for the first day or two. If you decide, for example, I'm not going to eat bread anymore, that's very concrete, and you can figure out how you're going to do it. But on day 3, you start going crazy, and at least most of us do. And I think that we have to have opportunities for kind of the rest of us who can't do those kinds of super ultra disciplined and even a little lopsided approaches to do something that's more generalizable to just the real lives that we're all trying to live.
Well, wonderful. Well, that kind of leads into a habit that a lot of people have. So your Flex Solution number 17 or 72 is to skip the diet soda.
Yeah, you know, the phrase diet soda is one of the most impressive marketing schemes of all time. Because if you think about it, if you switch from a regular product to a diet product, the implication is that you'll lose weight or that it'll somehow benefit you in some grand way. But there's never really been a research study that has shown that if you switch from regular to diet soda, that you'll lose a single pound. And I looked for those studies, and they've done a lot of studies to try to find that change, but it never works out that way. People always maintain the same weight, or sometimes even gain weight when they start drinking diet soda. And the reasoning for that is not entirely clear. One thought is that if you are drinking diet soda, you say to yourself, well, I can have some non-diet chocolate cake and it won't really matter. But another thought is that the sugar substitutes in these diet drinks actually result in having us crave sugar at other times of day. You sort of fool your body and get your insulin moving in a way that it normally would if you were consuming sugar. So when you don't, you want it later on, and it might not be so obvious to you. You might just grab an extra handful of pretzels or another piece of candy from the candy dish and not think anything of it, because those are small little things that you wouldn't really tabulate in your mental food diary. But the truth is, they add up. And there's also some interesting data about diet soda. For example, you might be familiar with a recent study that was presented that suggested that there's an increased risk of stroke in people who drink diet soda. And there may be some problems with that study, and more data needs to come out. But the fact that we're even having that kind of conversation means that we need to think carefully about what we're putting into our bodies, sticking with things that are real foods, that are as famously said by Mark Bittman, that come from plants rather than made in plants. Reducing our processed foods in whatever form, those things are going to get us healthier.
So a lot of people, I think, are addicted to diet soda.
Yes.
So as a doctor and as someone who's studied nutrition, what are some good substitutes when you just have that diet soda craving?
It can be challenging. And the truth is that some people switch from a diet soda to another beverage that has a sugar substitute. And so the careful thing there is to try to avoid a sugar substitute of any type. The best thing you can drink is water. We know that. And it's true that it can be a little bit boring, but there are some flavored waters that are out there if you want to spend money on it that don't have sugar substitutes. And there are some actually that are infused with herbs. I've found a few out there, things that are infused with lemongrass or rose or cinnamon and some kind of funky ingredients which are incredibly healthy, don't have any additives or preservatives or anything like that. But you have to be looking for it so that you can find it.
So it sounds like maybe you could get some herbal tea bags and maybe brew up some lovely concoction.
Absolutely, yeah. You just got to be a little creative and realize that it should be a priority. And while mentioning that, liquid calories of any kind are things you have to watch out for, even from fruit juices or from alcohol, and just realizing that having those things in moderation is very important.
Well, talking about another drink that people could do, the Flex solution number 74 is to drink green tea.
Yeah.
And we've heard such good things about green tea.
And for good reason. Green tea is a great beverage, not only because of its absence of significant calories, but it contains some substances that are not only helpful for weight loss, but also have additional benefit. So there are these substances called catechins, and they function a little bit similarly to caffeine in that they boost metabolism a bit. And so people find that drinking green tea does help with weight loss. It's not just 1 cup a day, though. The research studies show that you'd have to consume more like 3 or 4 cups a day if you want to achieve a significant impact on your weight. But with regards to the antioxidants and other substances within green tea that are just felt to be beneficial for the body, anti-inflammatory, you get those with any amount. And so it's a great idea. I think that for people who are looking for a substitute to coffee or who are looking, for example, to make green tea as a colder beverage, it's a great idea. Just make sure that if you're buying it, that it doesn't have additives, that it doesn't have added sugar or any other chemicals that you really don't need.
So keep it natural and healthy.
Keep it natural, that's right.
Wonderful. Well, you have some great tips on when you're going to the bulk store. And so you talk about Flex Solution 103, is that when you buy in bulk, to store it in serving sizes.
That's right. I think we do a poor job sometimes of figuring out our portions. This is no surprise.
Yes.
And so if you're going to make things easier on yourself, the idea here is to basically think about the portions when you're putting the food away. So if you go and you buy a big bag of pretzels, for example, if you were to take a little bit of time to either use Ziploc bags or if you have reusable Tupperware containers, things like that, that you can basically store the stuff so that when you want to use it later to have a snack or use as part of your kid's lunch or whatever it might be, you just have it right there. And you don't want to be in a situation where you're sitting there watching television with an enormous bag or container of food, mindlessly taking it. Because the research shows that we don't know how much we take. But if you hand yourself a little baggie that has the right quantity for that particular portion, you won't make any mistakes and you don't need to think about it because you've done the work a little bit earlier. And it takes a couple minutes, but this is an investment. This is a long-term investment.
Yeah, I think, bulk may save you money, but it's true it can actually add to your waistline if you're not mindful of those giant bags of things.
That's right. There are a lot of little tricks like that that you can use. Even just when you enjoy a snack, if you don't want to calculate servings beforehand from that big bag, when you go to have your potato chips or pretzels, because people will eat these even after watching this show, grab a bowl and put the chips in the bowl and then take the bowl to where you're going to be enjoying it rather than taking that bag with you. Because that way you'll just keep track of what you're doing.
And then you'll know what you've had and you can stop when it's time to stop.
Exactly.
Very cool. Well, you have Flex Solution number 114. You talk about eating slowly, which I think is important in society today because sometimes we're on the run, we're going through the fast food, we're eating in the car, or we're eating very quickly. So can you share some mindful techniques around eating slowly?
Well, the whole idea behind this is that when you eat quickly, first of all, you don't have time for your stomach to tell you that you're full. And second of all, when you're in a rush, you're just not thinking about what you're eating. And so some great strategies are to actually make sure that you chew your food before you eat it. Some people recommend putting your fork down or your utensil down between each bite. Chopsticks, you know, for when you're eating Asian foods, but even when you're eating other types of foods. Because the truth is, most Westerners aren't great at using them, and it slows you down a little bit. And just making a point of enjoying your food and enjoying the experience of eating it. Because we eat food for fuel and for calories, but most of us think of food, as something that makes us happy. And so really enjoy it and sit there and enjoy the taste and the flavors. And you'll find that you eat more slowly and probably eat a little bit less.
And as you eat more slowly, does your body then feel more satisfied? Because I'm wondering that when you're wolfing it down, does your body not have enough time to register that, oh, you did have lunch?
Exactly. People estimate that it takes at least 20 minutes for your body to really recognize that you have eaten enough food. And so when you're eating in a shorter period of time, you don't have the opportunity to figure that out within your body. And so that's why, for example, if you're having a salad with your meal, eating the salad first and then bringing out the meal makes so much more sense than putting the salad on the same table as the meal itself. Because you eat that higher fiber, healthier salad first, and then by the time you get the lasagna or whatever it is, you're less hungry and you might even eat less of it.
So it sounds even positive that you could be at a restaurant getting your salad and your meal, and you're practicing your diet plan as well.
That's right. I try to recommend to people when they eat at home to eat at the table and to think of your food as served restaurant style rather than family style. Serve yourself portions on plates rather than sitting at the table with a big bowl of mashed potatoes and giving yourself more every time you think about it. And the idea of serving food in courses. Have a salad first, have the soup first, and then have the rest of the meal, which tends to be higher in starch and higher in other things that might not be as good for you.
Good, that's wonderful. You have another solution about eating at least 25 grams of fiber per day, and that's Flex Solution number 116. And I love that, you go up to 200. There really are 200 in there.
Well, the reason why fiber is so important is because we don't eat enough of it. The average American consumes about half of the recommended 25 to 30 grams that we recommend every day. Fiber is good for you because it reduces your risk of heart disease, it reduces your risk of some cancers, and it can be very hard to get in your diet if you eat a diet that's very high in processed foods and a diet that's low in fruit and vegetables. So when you're thinking about how can I augment the fiber in my diet, those two things will help you. If you really think about real foods, foods that come in a container, in a package that are frozen or canned, it's more difficult to get to a good fiber level. And I include in the book a great website I found where you can basically plug in foods that you eat frequently and find out how much fiber they have. And that way you can think to yourself, well, what if I substituted this fruit that I always eat for that fruit that maybe I don't eat as much? And you can get more fiber that way. And the bonus is that fiber keeps you full, fiber reduces your appetite, and therefore it does help people lose weight.
Well, you list some of foods with fiber, and it's interesting. A banana has 3 grams of fiber, and that's wonderful because they're so tasty.
That's right. I just saw an article a few days ago that touting bananas as the next superfood. In fact, there's a new superfood every day. But the idea that bananas are actually pretty healthy, and part of that is that high level of fiber. So that's a great option. They're easy to get. You don't have to refrigerate them, and they're cheap. So it's a great idea.
And they're good. They go.
Yes.
They go good with PB&J. So,
That's right.
without the J. So an interesting flex solution that you had was laughing for 30 minutes a day, which I like because that's so easy to do.
I hope so. And it's sort of a joke unto itself, to be honest. But, you know, I think it's important that people have a lighthearted approach to all of this stuff, because when you get too obsessive and you're counting grams and points and weighing things, it seems like eating healthy and becoming healthier is a very serious business.
Mm-hmm.
But the truth is you have to view it in proper perspective. And while you're at it, laughing burns calories too. So if you are able to laugh 30 minutes a day, you'll melt the pounds away.
And you'll feel good about it.
I think
feel
so.
good about what
Most
you do.
importantly, you'll feel good.
Well, wonderful. I think it's such a wonderful book for feeling good and being healthy.
Thank you so much.
So, Dr. Beckerman, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
You can learn more about healthy eating at our website at www.newconnectionjournal.com. Join us next time on New Connection, where you can tune in and grow.